too many cocktails in the room, so maybe since this session is starting technically at 5, you have time to get a beer and get back?
Yeah, if you want to grab yourselves a beer and come back, but
I mean,
if you're leaving to get the beer, you have to come back.
yeah, that's the trade-off. Well, hey. Well, aren't you? Damn, you're missing out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I'm remembering all of your faces, so if you... Oh, wow. Service. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, no, I figured. Thanks. I have some special service for me as well, as you can see, because I do like my beers as well. In case you didn't know me already, Jordi is slow clapping. Are you slow clapping? Thanks. Yes. All right. As you might have seen, heard, know already, I'm with Spotler now. It's on the screen, quite big. And Spotler, for those of you who don't know, is now also merged with FlowMailer Triplets. So for any of y'all who know me from FlowMailer, it's literally the same company now. So nothing has changed too much. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. But what did? Yes. Oh, there's animations and stuff. I was not aware of those. Anyway, we have a new PowerPoint template, and they didn't really consider the fact that my titles are always long as fuck. So they never really fit. But we're talking today about the composability approach in MarTech. At MarTech Fest, I figured would be the best place to talk about it. Starter's guide. So I'm going to dive into the basics of MarTech composability, and talk a bit about how to go about it, what the idea behind it is. But first, let me introduce myself. I know I have a big head, but this is putting it to the extremes. As you can tell, I am the head of Comms and Ops at Spotler Group. That basically means that I'm doing everything apart from the actual marketing that you see. So operations means that I'm doing all the techie side of marketing, making sure that the systems work, that we have workflows in place. And for those of you who don't know Spotler Group, we are a group of companies specialized in the marketing automation area, and we acquire a lot of companies, making my work very exciting, because that means that every 2 months I need to worry about someone else's tech stack where I'm still working on my own. And on the other hand, I'm also responsible for communications, meaning the PR, thought leadership, social media. So basically, when it comes to practicing what you preach, that's me. And today, like I said, we'll be talking about composability, and specifically why you want this and how to go about it. So first, we're looking at why you should review your current marketing stack. Then about what Composable MarTech actually is, and looking at the core capabilities of it, so we understand what we're talking about when we say composability. And then a short introduction on how you could go about it step by step, since we only have 20 minutes, and there's beer, so don't want to make it too long. I know it's pushing 5, so so first we're looking at why. Okay, I'll give a round of applause to the butler. It's 5. Okay, why would you review your MarTech stack? There's a bunch of reasons. I listed 3 today, and the first one is cost and control. So there is a very interesting Xylo report. For those of you who don't know Xylo, they are in the business of license management and budget control. So they forecasted that SaaS spend, so exactly the business that we're in, is expected to grow from $167 billion last year to $195 billion this year, which is quite a big increase. However, 31% of that software is purchased centrally. Makes it very difficult for the people in charge of the budget and for the people in charge of license management to actually know what is being purchased. And so rather than purchasing MarTech or technology to begin with in the business unit or by individuals, the composability would allow us to take that back, take control back over what's going on in the business. And, well, I'll talk about it later. But this whole centralization is a key part of composability. And 20% of SaaS licenses is underutilized. I put it on the right. It's really big. And it talks about the average number of redundant systems. And I filtered this on marketing-related tools. But this is, of course, business-wide. But as it is purchased by business units and individuals, there is 6-7 business intelligence tools. I'm not saying that every business has 7 business intelligence tools. That will be a bit weird if you're like a company of 10. But the bigger you get, of course, the more redundant apps there will be. That results in underutilization and feature misalignment. So basically what that boils down to, the more software you have, the less it's actually going to be used, meaning that you're wasting a lot of money. And also, if you have all-in-one platforms, I think we've all seen the rise and demise of all-in-one platforms. The features are either insufficient, not up to par, and you're being dependent on a platform that is closed off. You cannot build upon it. Then the third reason why you should review your MarTech stack is data governance. If you have a siloed approach to your MarTech, saying, the marketing team, or you even have different marketing divisions, each has their own all-in-one platform, those will be siloed. And that makes it very difficult to understand what an email address or what a customer actually is doing, what it means when they fill out a form. And like I said, when business units or individuals are purchasing MarTech stack without a central brain actually knowing what's going on, there's also a risk. Data security, because who knows what is going on, if there's no centralized intelligence on that. And the last point on this is that if you choose if you're forced into a vendor-defined landscape, then it's never going to be how you want it to be. And one of the things that composability is offering us is to take that control over the architecture back. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the reasons why you should review it. I think, I should speed it up a little bit. Okay, so let's define composable MarTech. Composable MarTech, I use this Gartner's definition every single time that I talk about composability, which is every week, I guess. So I think a lot of people here will have seen it already. But basically what Gartner defines composability as is creating a network of, you can read it, but I'm going to read it out loud, of marketing software that can communicate with each other, but do not depend on each other to function properly. And that basically boils down to, if you rely on a all-in-one or like a siloed approach to your MarTech, then that's also going to create a single point of failure, right? That is both in the functionality, you run into limitations, there is a feature that is not there or is lacking, or in case of email, there's deliverability issues, but also on the infrastructure side, where if that all-in-one platform fails to deliver as a whole, or there's a general outage, then your marketing team can pack up and go home. So yeah, that's kind of the answer or the reaction that composability is towards the traditional approach. And I think I should have switched this slide around with the next one. However, I'll do that. Why not? It's 5 p.m. So, yeah, like I said, the more traditional monolithic, the siloed approach to MarTech is when you have a single suite solution that promises to deliver a lot, that will promise you the world, but in the end, it kind of it will give you limited customization options. Like I said, the vendor-defined landscape is not necessarily what is best for us as marketing teams, for us as MarTech specialists, and for the end user in the company, because what you will run into is people that do not know how to use something, that are not familiar with the interface, and they would prefer something else. But a vendor-defined landscape does not give you that option. Whereas Composable MarTech, with modular tools integrated via API, or standard integrations, or whichever way they communicate, allow you to select the tools that fit the need of your company, that fit the need of your end user. And that pretty much is the same as the flexibility for customization. You have this data architecture, this MarTech architecture, and what you can do is, instead of just do with the platform that you're using, is say, all right, I don't like this tool anymore, or I need something extra. And the composable approach allows you to do that, roll it out within an X amount of time, but never rely on the vendor, on the vendor's roadmap for when you would actually get that from your old one. Now I'm going back to this one. Okay, so as we're defining Composable MarTech, composability rests on 3 main principles. Composability. Composable MarTech rests on these 3 principles. Composability pretty much means building modular systems. Like I said, the network of independently operating but still communicating with each other. Either through API, but it's an API-first approach, like I said. But what you often see, and that is what we do with Spotler as well, is build integrations into the platform that rely on this API-first approach. But going composable does not mean, I'm not trying to scare you here, does not mean that you need to fully understand how APIs work. In some cases, it's nice to have, because not everything has been standardized. But in some cases, you can rely on either marketplaces, standard integration, third-party services that will help you out with this. And then best of breed is the third principle. And it's pretty much selecting whatever tool suits your needs the best. So those are the 3 main, the core principles of Composable MarTech. And then there's a few capabilities of that as well, which I want to highlight. 4 of them being interconnectivity, so having data readily available for you 24/7, because all the data touch points, so from one system to the other, are in sync through the API-first approach. Harmonization, the ability to make better choices with that data by unifying it in one central source of truth, which ultimately would make your reporting better, makes customer profiling easier. Orchestration, so you take back control. Like I said, you have the vendor-defined landscape and the user-defined landscape, which that is what composability focuses on. And that is making sure that the system and the architecture that you're providing your end users with suits their needs. And microservicing. I think microservicing is one of the main and the most important capabilities of composability. And it pretty much means that in case you have sales asking you for an AI integration because of them wanting to, or them being too lazy to send actual emails themselves, and they come to you and they say, hey, I would like to send automated emails to them through my leads that sound personal, that look personal, but the system that we're currently using doesn't support that. With the composable approach, you can just say, all right, we have this tech stack already. We just integrate OpenAI. We do this fancy stuff. But it allows you to quickly develop services rather than depending on the capabilities of this all-in-one platform, let's say. I can walk through these quite rapidly. So interconnectivity pretty much boils down to the data flow. It's having data readily available. Right? I think we walked through this in the first slide. But what I want to talk to you about still is the step-by-step implementation, right? So how do you go about actually implementing Composable MarTech? Because what I can imagine is that if you're in a situation now where you're relying on an all-in-one platform, you don't want to make the switch to another one, because that will take you months, if not years. And it would be good to know, it is good to know how to go about composability if you're in a situation that does not allow for that necessarily, if that makes sense. So what we do first, and as I told you at the beginning, what I'm doing for Spotler Group is pretty much practicing what I'm preaching here. So this is based on my own experience, where at first we look at the tech stack that we're currently running, right? Whether that is an all-in-one or you have different tools across different business units doing the same thing. And then you look at gaps, right? Where can we improve? What is missing? And what do we focus on first? Because going back to the microservices, this is the ultimate angle to start pitching composability, right? So you see gaps in your current MarTech stack. You identify those, and then through the composability approach, you integrate these microservices, allowing you to reach the goals that you previously couldn't. Then you go over to the selection phase, of course, because you're going to look at tools that will allow you to do this. So the API-first tools that are best of breed, focusing on specifically the use case that you're after. And of course, there's always the budget question, right? So even though you might be spending a lot of money on your current tech stack, I know it's never going to be a one-on-one replacement, and there will always be a budget question. But the best of breed approach does allow us to find tools that will fit that budget. And even if it doesn't fit the budget, I think with this approach, with the step-by-step approach, we can prove to the shareholders, to the budget holders, that it is worth the money that we're putting into it. And then you start integrating, right? It's how that goes, because if you don't integrate, then why even bother? And if you're not too familiar with APIs, I think it's a good start. But just lay out, okay, what is it? What is this gap that we have? What do we need in terms of data? And how is that gonna go with the tool that we have? Because not every tool that you will find in the selection process is gonna operate the same way. Then you start testing it, and then of course we, when the tests are okay and the budget is allowed, then we can scale up. So we now have a microservice implemented for a very successful use case in the marketing team. Why not get sales onboarded? Why not get customer service onboarded on the same tool? And then we create this cycle, right? If we implemented a microservice and we built upon that, and then slowly but surely we phase out what was there before, and we switch it out with tools that are composable. And if the composable approach or one tool in your new architecture doesn't work properly, you don't need to rely on this year-long migration process. You can just say, okay, maybe this tool isn't up to par. I switch it out, and then a month later, it's you switch out the tool that didn't work, rather than going through the whole process. Do I have more? No. So if there's any questions before going to beers, and if there's no questions, then I would run for beers. But if there's any questions about how to implement or go about the procedure of composability, then floor is yours. Yeah.
What do you think of the connectors? Instead of the API, there are several software like API.
Yeah.
So as to enrich all the aspect stuff, particularly when there is a suite and the capabilities are not addressed completely.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Zapier. And there's a whole bunch of other connector tools that will allow you to do things without the actual coding. Zapier is one, Buckles, there's a bunch of other tools. And they work very well for me because as a non-techie marketer, which sounds weird because I'm in MarTech, I do love Zapier a lot. And it also goes the other way where if I have a tool collecting data and I want that to be in a unified system like Power BI Tableau, I love using Supermetrics or Windsor or whatever tool there is out there. And I think we should make use of those tools because it makes our life easier and it allows you to deploy these microservices very efficiently. No, but if you're at that scale, I would assume that there would also be resources that could be allocated to like PHP development or anything like